Hello, everyone. Welcome to Endangered Species Unapologetically, where we are turning the hunted into the hunters. My name is Devon Morris. I'm your guide on this wonderful journey. And the first thing that I must tell you is subscribe to our video podcast. Also, make sure that you follow us on the other podcast platforms. Now, please understand that we're going to be here for you Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So just expect to see this kind of content blasting in front of you. And the background may change sometimes because, I still work. And since I still work, as I find things to do, I may have to take this setup and, make it more mobile, okay? But we have a few things to talk about. Now, thinking about where we're at today, yesterday, one of the most interesting things happened to me as I'm driving to go get a bike trainer. I got pulled over by the police. It's kind of interesting because I drove before the summer really started, like before Father's Day. I drove all the way to Chicago. I didn't get pulled over. And I'm in Texas, so I drove from Texas all the way to Chicago. So 14 plus hour drive. And then, I did that drive back, right? And I bought all this equipment to deal with every possibility of things that were happening. But yesterday, I'm just going across DFW. I'm not paying attention. I'm driving a little bit fast. So I'm paying attention to the GPS, to Google Maps, trying to make sure that I don't miss a turn. And I'm literally going with traffic. I'm not really going faster than traffic. I'm going with traffic. And a state trooper pulls me over, sheriff, whatever he said he was. And it was interesting because the preparation that I did for the trip is probably the things that helped me out. Because when he pulled me over, he kind of, stepped away from the car a little bit further. He had his mask on. Those were good things to see. And I have all my details in one little folder. And so literally I had that available for him. When he came over, I said, "Officer, I want to put on my mask." Boom. So I was able to do that. I gave him the information he asked for because it was just one thing. And then the only thing I had to pull out was my driver's license. So once he requested that, I went ahead and grabbed my wallet, told him I was getting that, and I gave him the driver's license, okay? He looked at things, asked me the question about where I'm going, and I told him I was going to Wiley, Texas. And so literally said I was going too fast. I was going to ask him some questions like, what was my speed limit? I didn't really know. I just know I was going at the speed of traffic. So he ended up saying to me, to kind of, ratchet down my fears. He said to me, "Look, this is just going to be a warning. No worries. You're just going a little bit too fast." And so that right there eased my attention immediately because I'm like, why am I really getting pulled over? I'm going along with traffic. So just making sure that he was safe and I was safe, even in terms of him breathing on me and me breathing on him, is two things I was really, really calculating in that interaction. But again, nothing went wrong. It probably was a 15-minute turnaround in terms of it when he pulled me over because I didn't even realize he was behind me. I looked up, he was there. So I'm like, okay, I need to pull over. I thought he was trying to get past me for a second there. And then I just made sure I pulled over to a place because we ended up being on a bridge. I pulled over to a place where he would be safe as well. So that was an interesting interaction because I haven't been pulled over by police in a while, especially since the, especially in this year, because there hasn't been a lot of traveling for me this year. So that was interesting. That was an interesting experience to have. It was pretty much one of those experiences that was, nothing to write home about. It was no drama, no issues, no problems. He just wrote me a warning on some sheet of paper, and I had to sign it, no problem. He gave it to me, and pretty much it had all my basic information on it, and that was it. I went along my way. He went on his way. So no problem, no issue whatsoever. So that turned out to be very, very, very simple of an encounter. Now, probably last time I got pulled over was years ago, but that ended up being a black cop. This was a white cop. So this right here, the kind of anxiety rose a little bit in terms of that interaction, especially when I saw it was a cop, but then I saw it was a white cop. Ratchet up a little bit. But I knew I was prepared, and I also have a camera in the car that is very visible, like an Uber driver's camera or a Lyft driver's camera. It's very visible. So it's recording inside the cabin. It's also recording the front of the car. So I got like this 180 view in front, 180 view behind me, something like that. I mean, it's probably not 180 like that, but it's roughly that, right? And so you can see everything, see anybody outside in my front of the car. So I got video of him. I have anything that was happening in front of me. So literally, when you really think about it, I have all that recorded. So then if it turned into any kind of an issue, I have evidence of it. And it was no big deal. They introduced himself to me. Everything turned out to be very, very fine. So for me, there was no real complaints about that. But I figured I'd bring that up because, it literally happened yesterday. So that's, it turned out okay. I mean, I wasn't happy being pulled over. I'm super happy I didn't get a ticket. But the idea remains the same. A non-event. And I'm assuming that most times when things go wrong, they're non-events. Maybe we don't win in terms of the ticketing stuff. We might get a ticket versus get a warning. But this time I got a warning, so no worries. Okay? All right. So that being said, in the news, there are a few things that I want to talk about. And I want to begin this section because I think that there's so many things that are happening in our ecosystem, that's in our world, that we should kind of be aware of as a sign of today's times, okay? So in the news, the first thing I want to talk about is yesterday was National Register to Vote Day. Voter Registration Day, something like that, right? National Voter Registration Day. Now, obviously, with National Voter Registration Day, like it's saying, it's trying to make sure that people go out and vote. So you see all these things on, like I opened up Facebook, and literally, when I say to you, me opening up Facebook, I received a bunch of, hey, are you registered? Show me my state, and do you want to register in a different state? Well, whenever it comes to voting, I always register when I renew my license. So I'm registered years in advance for everything. So for me, I'm always registered to vote because I just do it as a part of my license and the renewal of that license. So I'm registered to vote for every possible thing that there is to vote for, right? And so, it's one of those things where this is a time frame whenever this comes, it just reminds me to make sure that I get a handle on local politics. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I have operated under a few key things. That local politics has a greater impact on your everyday life than any other body of politics above, beyond, lateral to that, whatever it is. So state and federal comes after that. County comes after that, right? So it goes, local, county, state, feds. So I always look at the local as being extremely important. So I normally will just do a little dance with myself where I start looking at the candidates that exist in my area, where I live at, and those people that will have an impact on me, and start having some communications, start learning about backgrounds, and just making sure that I am aware of what's happening locally for me. I also take a look at that in terms of places where I'm running any businesses. Sometimes I will look at that for family members, right? Because I know everybody doesn't take a look at these things. And so for me, it's just one of those things I dive into. So, and then when I go to vote, I don't go with the default, that look like a black name, let me vote for them. No, 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 no. And I'm not down for, hey, let's just straight vote Democrat or Republican if that's what you are. Because if I don't know your politics, I don't know whether you're going to be there to soothe me or hang me. I just don't know. So I'm looking to see what you're going to do for me. Like, for my vote, what am I going to get in return for that? So it's like I'm saying to you, buy my vote. What are you going to do? What am I going to get in return for it, right? And so these are the things that I'm concerned about when something like National Voter Registration Day comes up. I always want to say register to vote, but National Voter Registration Day comes up. It's literally the fourth Tuesday in September. I'm assuming that it happens every single year, but you definitely hear about it on years where there's going to be a presidential election. And this election is an election that will go down in history, right? The thing that's so interesting is, I traveled. I did some traveling this weekend because I had to go bury my aunt. And what ended up happening is, what I'm noticing is one thing. I see that Trump voters are very vocal about their expression to vote. I was in the airport. I saw a guy on the back of his computer, literally on the back of his computer. It said, "I'm gay, Trump 2020. The Democrats will not buy my vote." Something like that. I'm not going to, it just says something against the Democrats, but very vocal about it and written in a way where he knows everybody's going to see it. Okay? Great. So then something else interesting happened, right? I literally about to get on a plane. I see a young black guy. Okay? Got to be in the military. Okay? Because he had one of those nice military bags that you normally would see that they have. They could fit a lot of stuff in it. Looked like he could carry it around forever. And you can see that he had his name, stitched in something and, kind of put on there with the Velcro or whatever, right? So you know when you see those things, right? And so he's, obviously active duty military. And he had a mask that said Trump 2020. I'm like, okay, all right, yeah. Okay, great. Now, when I ride my bike, especially when I go far out into the countryside, right? I see Trump. I remember one time I saw Biden, I was like, wow, okay, they got a sign for Biden up, okay? I say all that to say this to you. As I'm riding, after I get pulled over by the cop and everything else, and I get off further out, I see somebody with a car parked, and they have their car. You know how they have those wraps that they put around a car to advertise something? It says Trump 2020. Now, I'm looking at the blue car that says Trump 2020 on it. I'm like, okay, cool. Everybody got the right to their opinion, right? And when I pass this house, and then when I'm driving back to come back to the office, there's a big red sign on the top of the house that says Trump 2020. So people are definitely pushing forward Trump's agenda, opinion, everything like that. A lot of things that I get in my feeds are going to be related to Democrat stuff, even though, I'm not, I guess maybe I click on some stuff. But that's what I'm mostly going to see. And so a lot of times, due to what they feed you, you don't see the other side of the equation. So it just shocks me when I see the other side of the equation, not because I could care less who they vote for, right? It just shocks me because I'm not seeing those other opinions. Now, I was going to go have a conversation with the young brother and that was in the military, so I can just learn about his perspective because I'm kind of a people person. I'm not going to say, I have my opinion about things, but am I going to say your opinion is wrong? No, I'm not. Did I want to debate with him, anything like that? No, I didn't. What I really wanted to understand was the reasoning behind this vote that has nothing to do with Biden. That has nothing to do with Biden whatsoever. Like, if you look at this president, Trump, you look at him, and what are your reasons for voting for him? What do you expect to see on the other side of the 4 years? what do you expect to be the impact to be for decades to come? Okay? And I would like to just get their perspective, not the perspective of let's fight and let's argue. It has nothing to do with that. Because the most interesting thing is I'm not interested in voting for Biden either. Just not. I'm not a libertarian. Not that either. I'm just a GDI. That's all I am. A goddamn individual. Nothing more than that. Okay? So it'd be nice to get a coalition together and get some demands out there. Matter of fact, I would say to you that if there has been a major suppression of votes, that suppression happens against black men. That endangered species. Because not that most black men are in jail, that's horrible. Black women are more educated than anybody I know, right? They got a lot of degrees and everything else. But black men is a special thing because we get treated a certain way and we always are looked at as the aggressor. And not that most of us in jail, but when you look at jail systems, we have a disproportionate amount of us that are thrown in jail. And that being said, there's a huge suppression of a black man's voting rights. Now, okay, some people may debate that and argue with it, but I would guarantee you that if you look at history and you look at who they're suppressing the rights of, it's going to be blacks and it's going to be heavy black men, okay? And whatever your opinion of that is, it's fine. We're not here to debate it or anything like that. Just the idea is that it just is what it is. It's just a part of what our truth is. And the other aspect of that is in the actual, it's nice to see Kamala Harris as the actual vice president nominee. Now, that's cool. That's good. No complaints about it. She's Greek. I like it. Okay. Do I think Kamala is going to do anything to help us? Nah, I don't. I have this firm belief that she's cool, but I haven't heard anything that has changed my opinion. Because what I keep hearing is the whole thing for what I will do will be for everyone. I don't hear what she's going to do for us, the endangered species, black folks. I don't hear that at all, okay? It would be nice to have some people that are going to unapologetically do things for this community, which is interesting because I've been in this debate with myself about, a whole different topic, right? My affiliation with names that have been given to me, right? So, my mother gave me my name, I get that, right? But again, historically, my name is not my given name. I mean, it's my government name, as most of us would say. But another thing that has always happened to us is our identification, how we classify ourselves, and it's kind of one of those things where I think about the diaspora, right? How we're a little bit everywhere, right? And then I think about names that have been used over the years, from Negro to Black, and I can't say that I'm jumping and I'm super happy about African American because, if you're from Africa and you in America, you're African American, I guess, right? There's nothing special about that. But it's one of those things where at this point, it doesn't really describe me well enough, because the way that I think about myself is and I hate to use this, but it's the best thing that I have for myself right now, is as a native black. A native black. I'm scratching off the American to it because you have native blacks for all of North America. Now, the reason why I say that is because I have generations here, okay? And if you have if you have a history of slavery, being a slave in your family, being held in bondage, if you have any history of that, then wherever you're located at, you're likely Native at this particular point in time. So I am becoming more fond of the term Native Black. Native Black, Native Black, Native Black. You know, Native Black Brazilian, Native Black American, you know, Native Black, I guess, British, right? But I just have so many generations here, just no other way that I can think of myself, right? So I think that I'm going to be calling myself more of a Native Black, even though I don't like the term black. But I have no country to identify with except for America. Yeah, I've done the ancestry DNA. I've done the family tree DNA. I've done the 23andMe or 23andMe. I don't know how they pronounce this themselves, right? I've done all those things, right? I've done that African ancestry. I've done them, right? And it all points back to, you know, Africa, where I'm from. Even though my father's people point toward Europe or the Middle East. So now, okay, great. So I don't know. That's something I've been debating in my head, and it just came up as we started talking about ignoring black men here. So another thing I want to address in the news that is really just kind of just blown up over the past couple of days is coronavirus. COVID-19 in the United States has surpassed the 200,000 dead mark. That is significant. That is more than many wars combined. 200,000 Americans have died from COVID-19. Now, again, there's all kinds of conspiracies, like everything is a COVID-19 death these days, you know, just they're pushing everything to be related to that. There's all kinds of statements like that. But putting all those debates to the side for a moment, right? Realistically, 200,000 people is a lot of people. Now, you know, in a year, you know, the flu, 25,000, 30,000, maybe 40,000 in a bad year. There's people that said, that estimated that the coronavirus or COVID-19 is 10 times worse than that. So by the end of this year, I think we will probably be somewhere between 300 and 400,000 died by the end of the year, because we got a few more months left to go. So we haven't seen the ending of this thing just yet. There is no vaccine. And if there was a vaccine, I am sorry, so sorry for anyone that is sick while they're doing their trials. Literally. Because while you're sick, you will probably say yes to anything to try to get better. Now, that means you're kind of captive to being a candidate for whatever experiments they want to run on you. And due to the fact that this thing has disproportionately impacted Native blacks, the problem, and the question is, why has it impacted us the most? You know, there's always a debate of underlying conditions. This always was a statement that I've heard over and over again. But I lean in a different direction. I lean in a different direction of us being more frontline workers. Some people say it's the combination of the two, but I lean more toward us being frontline workers. because a lot of the people that I grew up with are frontline workers. They work someplace that has some direct, very direct touch point with the actual customer. And so we're heavy in terms of frontline workers. And why are we heavy? Due to that. Well, that's because of the wealth gap. Just really that simple. So that means we have an opportunity. We are going to be exposed more, which definitely can lead to deaths. And definitely if you have underlying conditions, bam, it's an issue. But do other groups or segments of the population have underlying conditions that wouldn't work out so well when it comes to COVID-19? I believe so. So that frontline worker status, for me, if I was able to do a study, I guarantee you that more than 50% of the reason, if we were able to figure that out, would be due to the type of jobs that we have. Now, I say that because just a lot of people that I know have that day-to-day contact with individuals, people, all that kind of stuff. So, that being said, we definitely have an issue that's disproportionately black, native black. So that is what it is, and those are truths by the numbers, okay? What the reasons are behind that doesn't change the actual numbers. Yeah, we find some way to deal with it and fight it, but it goes back to that economic wealth gap, and it is projected that we're going to be worse and worse and worse and worse in the future in terms of the wealth gap if we don't do something about it, okay? It's also known that the percentage of what we owned hasn't changed since slavery. And if it has changed, it's been minuscule, right? So just some of the things that we have to deal with in terms of this whole thing. So there's no approved vaccine as of today, no approved vaccine. And since there's no approved vaccine, there's a lot of people in that race right now trying to be the first ones to get that approved vaccine, because whoever gets that approved vaccine, the owner will immediately be worth millions. There'll be millionaires time and time again, in folds. So the idea is that everybody want to get to that place where they get a vaccine because there's millions of dollars in that. Now, here's the deal. The reason why a lot of this is in the news right now is because the CDC has changed its guidance, or at least made a mistake on its guidance, in reference to with the coronavirus, how you get it, and breathing and airborne and confusion around that, because they changed something on the website. And there's always been these complaints about, and coming from them as well as other places, saying that the CDC is under political control. Like, they're changing things on that website based on politics, based on them being told, not based on the science. And so how do we trust an organization that is going to base what they tell us, their recommendations, based on the highest bidder, or the bidder that's in control right now? Okay? The bidder that's in control right now. It's hard to trust that kind of situation. So the CDC's reputation is taking a big hit, and it's been taking a big hit. But is that because the political environment? Or is that because of the CDC? Because I just don't remember there being a year where I've heard the name CDC so much. I get the virus is here. I get that probably is a major reason. But the idea is that in terms of in the news and mistakes and changing this and guidance for that, I just haven't heard time and time again them being a bigger part of the argument of being, in the news for just a simple couple sentences being changed or a word. And boy, every week or so, there's something with the CDC. So I'm very, very concerned about that, especially when it comes to COVID-19, because it's like, if somebody coughs, man, and you're anywhere, it's like, I mean, I'm on a plane and I got a little cough because my throat is dry. And I'm like, man, I don't want to get kicked off this plane, so I can't cough. So now I'm going to kill myself because I can't cough. Yeah, I know that's silly, but I think you all understand where I'm coming from. But there's been millions of cases around the world. But the United States supposedly having the healthcare system that we have and being one of the agreed upon nations that are first world versus third world, which has nothing to do with poverty or anything like that. It has everything to do with whether you're a part of the agreement or not. Another topic, another day. So we continue with this problem. And again, I don't see how we come out of it in 2020. I just don't see. Because I know this much for sure. I'm not interested in the vaccine. I'm definitely not interested in the vaccine first. I mean, if I got to take it, I understand. But if it's mandated, I really don't want to take it. But I'm definitely not willing to be one of the first ones. I'm definitely not willing to be one of the first ones. Okay? So that is just interesting. Okay? So COVID-19 continues to be a heavy, heavy thing that's happening to us today. The next thing to talk about that was in the news, and this was definitely spreading around in the past few weeks. I mean, I heard about it even further back. And this is the Breonna Taylor case. The reason why it's come up again heavy is because there was a $12 million settlement for the family of Breonna Taylor. Okay? That no-knock warrant situation. I don't think it's turned out to be good in the eyes of at least the city or at least the governing body. Now, the thing that's interesting, the thing that has come up back in the news again has been a really simple thing. The boyfriend. The boyfriend, well, according to the boyfriend, he was offered a plea deal to be able to almost walk free, not have any jail time, if he just would make a statement against Breonna Taylor. Obviously, that statement wouldn't be in the best interest of her if she was alive. Definitely wouldn't be in the best interest of her. But to be put in a situation where you have somebody who's dead and all you got to do is just lie. He's saying they're asking him to lie about it, saying that she was more involved than what has been presented. Imagine being him. You're put in an impossible situation. You know, I would assume that he has the best of lawyers because of the light that's on his case. But I think to myself and say, you know, what's the issue here? Well, if I think that I am in jail and I can get off for free, man, it's in my best interest to say, man, whatever y'all want to say. You've stacked the cards against me. I have no choice but to go there and give you everything that you want. Because again, you've stacked the cards against me. I could walk out of here as a free man. Nothing would happen to Breonna Taylor if I go ahead and just say she did whatever they want me to say. But this young man has said, I'm not going to do that. She wasn't involved in these things that you are proposing or saying she was involved in. Man, it's a tough place to be. Because I'd rather have my freedom. I would assume he rather has his freedom. I would assume that to be true. because freedom is important. But then, do you want to muddy her name up? Because the moment you say that she was involved in these negative activities, the moment you say that is when they can justify not doing anything with the police whatsoever. And the interesting thing, in one of the earlier videos, I talked about the Attorney General being black. I won't mention his name, but you can easily look it up. This week he is supposed to, if I'm correct, decide on whether charges are going to go against those officers or not. Supposed to be coming down with that type of decision. It's interesting because in the past few days, down there, they've had the police have basically said, look, there's no more there's no overtime right now. Anybody who requested leave, you will not get leave. They have literally made sure that they have police forces available for when this announcement occurs. Now, for me, hearing about that says to me, it ain't gonna go in the right direction. It's not gonna go in the direction where they want it to go in. So they're preparing for the possibility, the legitimate possibility of the police needing to be enforced to deal with this. Now, I'm taking a look here to see if that statement has been made in terms of the case. I don't see anything at this particular point in time, but I clearly remember looking at letters, at least a couple of letters from the heads of police, management or whatever, saying that there'll be no time off. All time off has been rescinded, taken away. So we'll see what happens, and we'll have more to really discuss in the coming days, because Louisville has already entered a state of emergency once they actually was taking those precautions of having police around. Okay. Now, Breonna Taylor's mother has given a plea to the Attorney General saying, hey man, it's time to make a decision here, do the right thing, make sure that you take care of my daughter, basically is what it boils down to. And this guy has to make some type of decision. Now, that decision could come down today. But if it does come down, the Louisville Police Department is ready. Louisville is in a state of emergency. They are ready for this case. It is almost like the Rodney King situation. That's what I'm comparing it to. But I don't think that the LAPD was near being ready for that. So they are trying to be ahead of it by making sure that nobody gets any time off, and they have people available to deal with whatever is going to happen up to this point. And again, this has been a long time, because we're talking about back in March. We're talking about this happened back in March, right? This happened back in March. And so, realistically, if I really think about it, my prediction is nothing. Nothing is going to happen. They're not going to do anything to those police officers whatsoever. Maybe they've been suspended already, and that's about it. But I don't think they're going to lose. They're not going to be convicted. They're not going to be brought up against charges. If they are, I will stand corrected. But I just don't think that's going to be the case. Okay? Now, should it be the case? I believe so. But my question becomes, the police officers, if they go to jail, let's just say that charges are brought up against them and they go to jail, I would say that what good does that do? Because there's a famous justice that said basically these problems are normally, they happen slowly over time and have a big impact. Okay? Well, if I just back it up a little bit, who voted into law, who put in place the no-knock warrant? Shouldn't they be liable for this? Because they put the system in place for this to be a possibility. For this to be a possibility. They put that in place. So I think it's only right that everybody that was involved in making this part of the truth, in making this part of reality, they should all be strung up. They should all be. Not just these officers, because what ends up happening is the people in the background, they go and live their lives, and they put frontline workers out there to do all the dirty work. And then they're back there, and we're all good. And the best thing I can compare it to is the street dealer versus the leader of the cartel. The leader of the cartel is not out there in the thick of all the things that are going on. No, not unless they decide to be. But the everyday worker is out there. The police officer is out there, okay? And how did we get in a place where we set up the system in a way to have something go wrong like this? Now, see if they were doing something they weren't supposed to do. Yeah, there was some wrong information. I agree with that. I agree that all kinds of things went wrong. Yes. Okay? But what about the people that put those rules in place? Can we track them down? Can we do something with them? Should they be able to make any more rules or laws like that ever again in their life? I don't know. I just know it's a problem. And it's one of those problems that we need to deal with, right? But again, that boyfriend plea deal is concerning. And if they have an ounce of proof of that, the Attorney General, DA, whoever, should be strung up. Should be absolutely strung up. Like, for real. Because that is ridiculous. And the only reason why you would do that is to save the officers. Period. There's no other reason why you would do that at all. So it becomes another one of those interesting things that I would love for us to consider and deal with in some type of way, some kind of way. You know, another thing that happened, you know, that I saw in the news yesterday was Wisconsin. Ooh. That young man that shot Mr. Blake. I'm not going to talk about him right now. We understand that situation. But the protest a couple days later, there was a young white man, teenager, 17, 18 years old, that shot some of the protesters, killed 2, I think injured 1, yada, yada, yada. Okay? And I saw somebody who put up in a conversation yesterday in reference to they actually had a press conference talking about the situation. It could have been about the situation. It could have been about Blake. I don't remember. But the idea is that I saw something really interesting, and here's the reason why I brought it up. They had a free this guy's name. Somebody typed in the chat, free this guy's name. And it's like, wow, seriously? Yeah, right of opinion, great, no problem. This guy shot some people. 17 years old. He wouldn't even been close to doing that if he didn't have a gun. He was shooting people, but he wouldn't even been close to that situation. So he's open carrying, 17, in a whole different state, and is got probably the best attorneys available that money could buy. This kid may not get nothing that will happen to him. Nothing. He was scared to go into the area. Maybe he's going to plead. But then why did he go into the area? Oh, because he had a gun. Yeah, well, they're still fighting back and forth over that situation, and it's going to be many weeks before they really start moving forward in any kind of way. And even that, just the wheels of justice can turn really slow. So that may not be where it's at. That may not be the thing to do. But there are people literally that are like, free this guy. And okay, again, my statement is you got a right to think whatever you want to think. My concern is if this person was black, would they get treated that way? They'd be thrown into jail for sure. For sure. For sure. However, the most interesting that happened, over the past couple of days was a cowboy riding a horse. They call him the Dreadhead Cowboy, riding a horse on the Dan Ryan Expressway in the city of Chicago. Now, that was a scene to be saw. Now, why is that? Because this guy was saying kids' lives matter. So he's riding the horse. Kids' lives matter. Kids' lives matter. And that's what he's doing. And I'm telling you, if there's one thing that he did, he got some attention. Especially in Chicago, especially anybody associated with Chicago to look back at that stuff. He got some attention. But I say it was the nationwide attention that he wanted? No, I don't think so. Because I know a lot of people that live outside of Chicago and they don't know nothing about it. Okay? Kids' lives matter. Kids' lives matter. For sure, kids' lives matter. No question about that. Classically, when we think about well-being, we think about taking care of our youngins, the next generation, to put them in a position where they can go ahead and put other future generations in a perfect position. So, more to be seen on that as well. And I don't even say anything about Blake, who's still working on recovering from being shot in the back 7 times. So, all very, very, very important. Okay? But that's really the stuff that stuck out to me in terms of the news, realistically. So, great. That takes us even further. To move out of the news, I want to talk about something that is a nice little topic for us to get into. And it's only a nice little topic because this is going to have a far-reaching impact on us. Okay? Far-reaching impact on us. Now, the name, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She died this past Friday. Now, obviously, she's been sick, has dealt with cancer, strong woman, to go out dying, fight to the death. That's where you look at her, okay? Great, you look at it that way. That's an interesting thing. Now, I remember, hearing more about her back in 2007, but she had a life, a big life, big legacy before she ever joined the court. Okay? When you think about RBG, the notorious RBG, I remember, like 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago, the notorious RBG, the whole movie came out on CNN, all that wonderful stuff. I thought those were great tributes to her, right? And did that happen during Obama or Trump? I don't remember which one it was. But she had a bunch of great and wonderful things said about her. And in watching, those movies, right? And watching that documentary about her life, I recognize that she has always been an advocate for gender equality and women's rights. And the thing that is most interesting about her is that she's won many fights or arguments against the Supreme Court. That alone is one of those hats that you put on your head And you're super proud about that alone. So if she had not become a justice, a member of the Supreme Court, just that part of her legacy alone is great. You know, when it comes to women, black women are women. So it's a nice gesture there. It's a nice thing that she's doing. It was great because she was an amazing fighter, and all respect to her completely. Now, the thing that really, really just kind of put it on the map for me, and again, I'm not saying that she wasn't on the map before this, but 2007, the Ledbetter versus Goodyear case. That case where there's a Lily Ledbetter who was pretty much being paid way less than the guys. Way less than the guys. So it was about pay discrimination. That's what it was about. Okay, the entire case. So she's getting paid for long periods of time, way less for doing the same exact work, if not more. Okay? So this is where, obviously, I think it was a 7-2 judgment. Obviously, she was one of the two for Goodyear. And I guess it was for Goodyear with some loss there because, you know, there was this 180-day period, or from when she found out about the problem up to now, she can recover from and get paid what she's supposed to be paid from when she saw the problem to when it was current time. You know, and the thing that Miss RBG did is she dissented. And when she dissented, she actually read in open court her dissension, which is something that people rarely do. And since they rarely do it, her doing this was already a big statement. Obviously, passion in what she's saying. And what she's saying is completely logical. And if you think about it, if you were the actual person, right? And let's just say 5 years, you've been working for a company. 4th year, you find out, man, they're discriminating against me. And they've been discriminating against me all this time. The problem you have is that you don't have access to other workers' confidential information, which she mentioned to them. And this is when she made the statement that, how did it go? It went like discrimination often occurs in small increments over large periods of time. That's her that made that statement. I mentioned that earlier because that's the same thing that happened to black folks over time. You have this little thing that changes, that little thing that changes, this little thing that changes, some violence over here when it don't go right, all that kind of stuff happens again and again and again. And she made that statement when she dissented, okay? Made it loud and clear because she said that if you're going to be discriminated against, you should be able to go all the way back to the beginning of that discrimination. Which is what I think, right? If I had 5 years and I'm on the 4th year and I find out about this problem, I want to go all the way back to when I began, okay? Well, that's a tough cookie, right? It's a tough cookie because when you began could be many, many years ago. And now you have to go back and calculate all that stuff. But that's worth it because I'm going to get paid that, right? But now the company, like a Goodyear, is fighting and not allow that to happen. Because obviously there are other other people, women in particular, that have been discriminated against. So that led to a very, very peculiar place. A very peculiar place. Because she obviously lost this, right? Because she dissented. Dissenting, she lost, right? So good year one. But something interesting happened the following year. This young scrappy senator out of the state of Illinois became president. January 29th, 2009. Obama's first law that he passed was the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. The Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. Now, she was very happy. I remember seeing her express happiness toward Obama with that. I remember that clearly. But that was the first law that Obama passed. So Obama helped women. Can I say help a lot of black people? I can't say that, right? But I can say in general, we help women. And probably most of those women that get most help from that particular act will be white women. And I get it. It's okay. So that dissent, that public dissent turned into an act. And it was one of the few things that she had framed up that she could see daily, which to me shows how important she felt that was and how proud she was of that accomplishment. Because even in that loss, the long game was to bring somebody in that ultimately could change things. And Obama had the opportunity, took advantage of that opportunity, and decided to change things. That is great, wonderful, and great. Now, that brings us to a few days ago. She passes away. She actually has a granddaughter write down some information to get everybody. She said, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed." Interesting, right? Now, it's great to say, hey, you know what? Let's meet the lady's wishes. But that's not how the law works. That's not how our country works. The sitting president has the right to nominate somebody immediately. Man, Trump was nominating. Trump was actually bringing up names of people like last week. So I'm assuming, I didn't have no clue that this lady was about to go, man. I thought she's probably gone already. But literally, when I say to you, like a week before she died, Trump was bringing up names for the Supreme Court. He was literally bringing up names for the Supreme Court. Now, I know he's not a psychic. I know he doesn't have some hold on the future where he knows exactly what's going to happen, because he definitely would have nipped this coronavirus thing in the bud. But it's very, very interesting that he had that. So obviously he got a whiff of this, right? He got a wholehearted whiff of this. And with that wholehearted whiff of this, he said, let me strike while the iron's hot. Even before the iron's hot. Let's go ahead and start giving names out before the lady even passes away. Which is crazy, right? So obviously he knew that her health was going in the wrong direction. Now, health going in the wrong direction. Wow. I get it. Okay? So, Obama in 2016 election year, right? He actually put a justice, nominated a justice. I don't remember the justice's name, but I know that it happened around March time frame. I know like March time frame of 2016, Obama actually put forth a justice, nominated a justice, yada, yada, yada. And you heard calls about these kind of things back then. But we're talking March versus September right now, right? I mean, 6 weeks from now, maybe, we will have elected a new president. And they don't take office till next year, obviously. But you really, really think about it. Obama had that option back then, okay? Now, he had that option, and I believe I think it was Scalia. He died a month later. That's what I remember. He died a month later. Yeah, he died a month later. I'm thinking that he was one of those justices that had some questionable activities. But he died a month later, right? The key statement is he retired. The dude retired. Do you understand where I'm coming from? He retired. He said, I'm done. He retired. Celebrated, received all his accolades, gave him all his flowers while he was alive. Great. But then he put that president in position to replace him. The notorious RBG's greatest strength is her greatest weakness. There's a lot of value in fighting till the death. Just fighting till you have no more fight left. Well, you leave it, every ounce of it. You leave every single ounce of it on the court. But that same fight in her, she could have gotten off the court sooner. And she could have did that during the Obama administration. If she loved Obama so much and had all these accolades for Obama, when do you actually go ahead and pass the torch on? So and then you have some say in the next one. We're saying that her brain is perfect. You understand? I remember seeing all those wonderful and great documentaries on her, and she was sharp as a whip. So don't you think while you're sharp as a whip, you want to go ahead and select the next person to replace you? You want to have some say in that. And do you really think that Obama wasn't going to allow you to have some say in that? I think Obama would have almost asked for your blessing. Like literally, here's this candidate, what do you think? Type situation. And you would have been able to vet people out. So behind closed doors, you would have had a huge impact on your replacement. On your replacement. If you would have positioned yourself and walked away. This is like, when you see a sports star like a Michael Jordan walked away in his prime. I don't think LeBron James is ever going to be done with his prime. But the point I'm making to you is that that's not the case for most athletes. Most athletes don't walk away in their prime. At least the big time ones that last for many years. They end up hanging on, then they're relics or shell of themselves. And it's a very different thing. You see it way more in more brutal sports, like a football or something like that. You see it more then, where they're just a relic of themselves. So the greatest thing about her was her greatest weakness, not wanting to give up. And you don't know when death is going to come. We all know this. And so don't you think you would want to put yourself in a position where you have power to change it? Power to have an impact on it. Well, she had that opportunity, but her dogmatic tenacity to fight the good fight, she missed one of the number one things you do as a leader. Replace yourself. Surround yourself with others that can do what you need to do, that can do what you do, and be like you. That's what she should have been doing. That's the position that she should have been putting folks in. That's not what happened. It is not what's happened. So you have a situation now where she is gone now. And she's not going to be able to have any input whatsoever into this process. I'm not sure if they're supposed to have any input whatsoever, but she's not going to have any input whatsoever into this process. Wow. 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 But she had the opportunity. So again, that tenacious, that never-ending fight has lasted her till death. And now her replacement could reverse everything that she did. Everything. Because she did not have a contingency plan to put the right leadership in place to make sure that the legacy that was created by her will continue to have an impact in the far-reaching future, and she don't just become a footnote in history. So literally, she was her own worst enemy. And that's not to say anything negative about her. I get it, right? Sometimes we have such that dogmatic tenacity that we just don't want to give up, man. That we just don't want to give up. Man, that's an amazing thing. It's super amazing. But what position does that put us in? And man, I'm telling you right now. And it's funny, right? Because, you kind of know that whoever is going to be picked, and I have no clue. I haven't read anything in the news, anything like that. But I already know that whoever's going to be picked is going to be exactly opposite of her. They're going to be exactly opposite of her. I guarantee you, mark my word, that's what's going to happen. Because Trump immediately said, whoever the person is going to be is going to be a woman. That is the only criteria for replacing this justice. And when he starts to say things like that, the other side of that is going to be something interesting. But what's most interesting is that without officially having a name, he does not have a name that he's put out there. He has the votes necessary in the Senate to move forward. You talking about some backdoor politics, man. He literally has not whatsoever said who he is going to put forth, the name, anything like that, in terms of this. And he has enough votes to push it through. Literally. Now, she's wished, the notorious, wished that nobody should be picked. Her hope is that Trump is no longer president. That's her hope. Yeah. Shouldn't have bet on it like that. Your fight didn't allow you to step away. Your fight did not allow you to step away. That's the thing for me that will likely haunt her legacy. Not to say her legacy isn't great. It's great beyond belief. It is one of those things where to have a legacy like that is a dream. But if I'm king of a nation and I am overthrown and everybody that has any relationship to me whatsoever is then murdered, right? My legacy doesn't move forward. Based on the pick to replace her, her legacy may not move forward. They may reverse many other things. They will start doing things that would not align at all with her beliefs, with how she's fought for equal rights for women, equality in general. So, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I'd say thank you. Say thank you for the service that you provided. But I think you stayed on the job 4 years too long. Okay? 4 years too long. If you wanted to have an impact on who was going to be selected. Okay? Or that arrogance existed where you wanted to just stay on board until the wheels fell off. And unfortunately, you have no control now. You're off with the ancestors. You have no control now over what's going to happen. So I firmly believe that they will have a justice selected. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that. Okay? I firmly believe that this justice will not be anything like RBG. Now, if I'm Trump, I'm getting that thing through. No question. He has the right to. He has the absolute right to get a justice through. He doesn't have to live by her statements. That's nice. That's sweet. That's cool. Love her. But he doesn't have to live by that. That's not the law of the land. He doesn't have to. He has the right to nominate a justice. He has the right during these last few months that he's in office to get that justice in. And nobody's saying he's not going to win the election, because he very well can win the election. He has all opportunity to win an election. If he does, great for him. This conversation is mute. It's moot, I should say. So, if I'm a Trumpite, I'm pushing this through. No question. If I'm a Republican, I'm pushing this through. Because if he loses, there could be an impact to our party where we don't get an opportunity like this for decades. Because that many people have been alienated. See, I want you to understand something that is really crazy. And it's really one of those things that I don't think we think about. And for me, in terms of being an endangered species, I unapologetically make this statement to you. The Supreme Court has been the bane of our existence. Every time there are laws and things put in place, it is the Supreme Court that judges against those laws, that puts us in a position where they take us backwards as a nation. Well, not as a nation, as black folk. As black folk. Because every time we make a stride, just look at history, people. Just start looking at major wins that happen as a result of freedom, as a result of the civil rights movement. Just look at them all. I guarantee you that there have been challenges that have gone up to the Supreme Court, and I guarantee you that they did not turn out in our favor. And the only way those things have turned out in our favor is if we had parties suing and fighting, and those things still don't turn out in our favor. You literally have situations where the NAACP has won things, literally, and then the whole state has said, we're just not going to do it. We're just not going to do that anymore. It's not in the Constitution that we got to supply education. So you know what to do? Stop educating everybody. But then what they do on the back end is create vouchers and only give vouchers to white kids, right? To white families, right? Thereby leaving probably poor white families and blacks in general in the hole. Okay? So these things just have this ripple effect. Okay? And if you don't get that, if you don't understand that, I'm really, really concerned. You really, really need to do some research. You really, really need to learn about some things, because the Supreme Court is the vestige of power that white nationalists and white supremacy will continue to utilize to run this country. Period. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to that. Because every law that is created, if somebody challenges it and does a good job at challenging it, guess what happens? It goes to the Supreme Court ultimately. And they're going to likely do one or two things. They're going to send it down to the lower court where you've already been losing because you had to appeal your way all the way up, right? So they're going to send it back down there where you're going to lose that anyway. Or they're going to not give you a favorable decision. Now, think about this, right? We're already out. I mean, in terms of in general, they would say it's a stacked house over there. I wouldn't say it's stacked, but I would say it's a majority that supports the white nationalist agenda, that supports the systemic racism. So it just, like the Electoral College, we have had 2 elections pretty much stolen because of the Electoral College. Now, what I say is because of the Electoral College? No, I won't say that. I would say they've taken advantage of it. They've twisted the rules to work in their favor. So you have a president that loses the popular vote. You have a person that loses the popular vote. You've had 2 Republican presidents that have lost the popular vote and they became president. You have situations where states that don't make any money, states that are making no progress toward the future, have major control in the House and the Senate. And now what we're doing is, well, what Ruth has helped to do is to leave that power firmly in their hands. And to put her seat up as one that could stack that hand for decades to come. So what's happening to us right now, I'm not worried about what's going to happen to me. I'm more worried about my great-grandchildren. I'm worried about my daughters, my sons, right? I'm more worried about them. I wish I had one of them buttons that you could play and it makes a sound, right? That would be nice. Like bring a sound in, right? I'm about to get that. But that's what I'm thinking about here, right? I'm not thinking about me. I'm thinking about the generations that come after me and how they will be impacted by this justice. How they will be impacted by this justice. And I don't know. I don't know who he's going to select. I have no clue. But I know whoever he selects is going to get through. And I know that it will be done by the end of the year. Because if I was him, I'd do it. I definitely would do it. He would not stop me. I definitely would do it. The only way that wouldn't get done is if I didn't have the votes. But that would be crazy because if I'm a Republican, I expect my Republican homies to help me out. So we get through. And they can ride it on out. They really can. They got all the things. They got all the votes that they need to. So without naming someone, he has a majority vote already. So this is going to happen, people. You can cry about it. You can argue about it. You can do everything you wanted to. But the person that really had control of this was Ruth. Because when when he was out, she should have went out too. That is, if she wanted to have impact, on who the leader would be. Now, the crazy thing is if Trump wins, you still got the same situation. It's not going to change it. I mean, it's not going to change the decision. So let's just say Trump decided to wait and Trump wins the election. Look, you're going to get what you're going to get, right? And again, it's likely going to be opposite of her. But if I was Biden and I won and he was not able to get somebody through, my nominee would be Obama. My nominee would be Obama. I don't know if Obama can do it, though. I don't know. Do you have to sit on something? I don't know the rules on how you can become a justice. But my nominee would be Obama. That's just the popular vote here. It would be Obama, just for the hell of it, right? And if it's Obama, I don't know I don't think he would accept it. If I was Obama, I wouldn't accept it. Maybe I would accept it because you can be there a lifetime. You can sit there all the time. And I don't know what they do. They only work half the year. I don't know how long they work for. I need to do more research into that is what I need to do. Do a little bit more reading into that whole situation. But yeah, man, I think for the people that's crying about this right now, everybody that's crying about it right now, I think that your crying is useless. I think it's useless. Because Ruth had control of this situation. And I'm not saying that she could see into the future, but the idea is that you find a suitable replacement and you replace yourself. Your job is to replace yourself. That's your job, to replace yourself. You know, when it comes to my kids, I am doing everything in my power to replace me. When it comes to anybody I work with, any organization I'm a part of, any position that I play, I want to put somebody in a position to replace me. Normally, that's how I get a promotion. I move on to something else and they take over where I'm at, right? So she didn't do that. Now, right or wrong is indifferent. Judgment on her, don't have any. But her absolute number one thing, that tenacity, that never give up attitude, made her a legend. But it will also be the thing that will erase many of the things that her legend created. And then we will only talk about RBG in a mythical sense. In a mythical sense, because all of her impacts have been removed. That's the concern that I have. That's the big concern that I have at this particular point in time. And in having that big concern, oh boy. I don't know how you're going to stop this, people. You can argue, you can fight it, you can do whatever. Again, if I'm Trump, I'm not stopping. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure I do this. Period. So that is my concern about that. And it's not a crazy concern. It's not anything that's out there, and it's funny to think about Obama being a justice. That just gives me a good chuckle. Like, Obama's a justice. I mean, he's an attorney, right? So why not? Why not? Why not? What are the things that you need, right? It'd be interesting. But that'd be fun. That'd be fun. Oh, Michelle if that's the case. Make Michelle Obama the justice, right? But again, Biden's not going to get a shot at this. Not going to get a shot at this. Forget the election. The election has nothing to do with this. Okay, it really doesn't. And there's nothing. It takes a few weeks to confirm somebody in. So, we're talking about this is going to be done. There's no question. And every supporter of Trump, hey man, you should be shooting for that. And all you supporters of Biden, you should be shooting for the opposite of that. Okay, you should want to get your man a shot. But you got to get him a shot, and you got to help him win the election. And you got two big, tough things ahead of you. Just is what it is, just part of that truth, right? So, yeah, I'll leave that at that. So, Miss Notorious, we really appreciate everything that you did, especially for women in general, because all those things you did applies to all of us that's battling these battles of equality. So you did an amazing job. There's no question. All hats off to you. Celebrations to you. Candle lights, everything. You did an amazing job. It's this one thing that you did wrong. You didn't replace yourself. And that's okay. We don't get everything right. We're human, fallible. All right, so that being said, I brought up something else during that time that I want to make sure that I have a conversation about. And that thing is really, really simple. I brought up the NAACP, other organizations. And that brings me to a topic of something that I saw a while ago. I remember seeing charitable donations. And as George Floyd happened, I started seeing all of these organizations start giving charitable donations to NAACP, Black Lives Matter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is charitable donations to the Black cause, for lack of a better term. So, charitable donations to the Black cause. Okay, is what I'm really talking about here. I always go to a different place though. Okay, the place I go to is about really solving a problem versus it being a panacea, being like a sugar pill, right? Being a placebo. Okay. And the one thing that I recognize to be true is when you follow the money, you normally find the truth. You normally find who's really, really pulling the strings. Who's really, really pulling the strings. You really find that out when you follow the money. Okay? So, if you go read older books about the history of the NAACP, you will note that the NAACP was created by a bunch of white folk. I believe it was in Springfield. Probably has something to do with Lincoln or whatever. Maybe not even Lincoln, but I believe it's Springfield. But forget that. That doesn't matter. It's a bunch of white people that kind of pulled it together, and Black folks got more involved because they needed Black folks involved. Put color to the side. When you receive donations from big donors, those big donors get a seat at the table. They get a seat at the table. Okay? Which means that you have to acquiesce to some of their desires. So I remember seeing Joe Budden's podcast and talking about him leaving Spotify and all this other stuff, right? And one of the things that he talked about when he was kind of went on his rant about Charlemagne the God is he said ownership versus being an employee. Okay? Ownership versus being an employee. And for me, when you are getting donations from these various parties, these big donors, for me, you have to acquiesce to their desires. You're not an employee, but you have to make sure that you don't step on their toes so you can ultimately get more donations. Catch-22 now. Catch-22. Because the one thing that these organizations have in common is none of them truly talk about wealth building. So, not that the NAACP is doing anything wrong, because they fought a bunch of legal battles. They've done a lot of great things. I'm not calling them out specifically. Matter of fact, let's not talk about them because I don't want you to think I'm calling them out. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. Okay? In terms of Black Lives Matter, great the things that they're doing. No question. But their mission is to intervene with things that impact black folks that involve the state or vigilantes. That is a reactive purpose. That means that as Martin Luther King, let me sick this dog on you. Once that dog bites you, then you can give me a reaction. Then you can say, ouch, okay? And then you complain about the dog biting you, okay? And maybe you don't get bit again. But does that change the system? Does that deal with the real problem? It does not deal with the real problem. That's the problem I have with most of these organizations, is that they're not really dealing with the real problem. And our real problem is wealth building. I mentioned earlier during this podcast that we still own the same percentage, like 1%, maybe 2% of ownership of stuff, assets, or whatever it is, the same amount we had since slavery, and that's projected to go away. That's not the direction we want to go in, people. It just really isn't. So now I challenge you to think, right? If I'm saying to you that we have the same assets that we had since we left slavery, same assets, same amount percentage-wise, right? And I'm saying to you that that's going to go away. Is intervening with state vigilantes, is that going to change that situation? The answer to that is no. It's a very reactive response. Let me hit you over the head. Now give me a reaction. That doesn't change the systemic problem. It doesn't at all. You have to understand that as an owner of a black business, I know what I got to fight through. I got to fight through all kinds of trying to get money to do the things that we want to do, being raped in terms of the whole interest rate on borrowing money, because every time I talk with the richer black people, they always say, borrow money, just borrow money, do it like the white people do, borrow money, build your business, do borrow money, don't use any of your own because that doesn't make any sense. Well, how do you do that, man, if you ain't got access to capital? How do you do that if you don't have access to capital? Wow, if you don't have access to capital, how do you do that? Okay? Most of us just want a fair opportunity. A fair opportunity. We're not asking for handouts. I don't ask for any handouts when it comes to the businesses that I run. None at all. And that's the reason why mine grow a lot slower. Because I have to think to myself, cash, 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 cash. But every time I try to use loans, something major goes wrong. Something major goes wrong every time. Doesn't work out. I end up putting myself in a bigger hole by doing these things. So now I got to go back to cash, 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 cash. But that derails us from the original problem. And that original problem is, how is Black Lives Matter, Urban League, NAACP helping to change that problem? I'm waiting for an answer. I haven't seen one. So when I look at something like Black Lives Matter, not that this is me going in on Black Lives Matter, but I just look at them as being our modern day NAACP. I look at them as being our modern day Urban League. I look at them being our modern day organization that is going to react to the status quo and in default maintain the status quo. Interesting. When you start thinking about things like economics in general, they're not going to give us anything. And everything that they give us is leftovers. It's not going to do anything to change the situation. They're not positioning people that they put on welfare to get off welfare. They're not doing that at all. Okay? So you end up continuing with the same state of affairs. And then it becomes a crabs in a barrel kind of thing, where we don't learn how to pool our resources together so we can cooperate and utilize our economic base to get the things that we need to get through really working together. But it's hard to do that when we're fighting for the same small piece of the pie. And they put us in a position to keep stabbing each other in the back when it comes to that. So it's one of those things where I always think about following wherever the money is coming from, where the money is going. Because our issue, regardless of what I look at it, I can call it anything I want to. But we're in this position right now where it is a financial problem that we have. Even if you used to go out and give us a lot of reparations, what good is that going to do? I mean, when I say reparations, I mean financial, right? There could be many other ways that reparations is done. And I'm not saying no to that, yes to that, anything about it, right? What I'm saying to you is putting us in a position to wealth build is a whole different situation. Redistribution of land, all kinds of things that can help out. But we definitely will have to work together. We definitely will have to take economics and move in a very different direction with that. Capitalism isn't designed for us to win in this battle, because they have gone around the monopoly board 400 times. And they're telling us, without us having any access to anything that's going to help equal the playing field, they're telling us, you know what? Hey man, go for it. Do your best. That's the situation we have at hand. That's the situation we have at hand. And I go back and I just clearly remember seeing, deeds where the United States of America gave land to Europeans, basically, to Europeans, right? Immigrant Europeans. not immigrant blacks, immigrant Europeans, not immigrant anybody else, European whites, for free, right? And again, that was the start of their base of wealth. And so as I think about following the money and I look at these, I'm going to call them charitable black organizations, I don't see them being any different than the organizations of the past. I don't see them changing anything whatsoever. And the question that I have to say to myself is, unfortunately for us, our playbooks, the people that know the knowledge to create the playbooks, are more than likely political prisoners or dead. Wow. So how do I create this playbook from scratch? I mean, I'm going to have to create it from scratch. But I don't know how this playbook moves forward without talking about economics and wealth building. I don't know how it does that whatsoever, if that makes sense. Oh, people. We live in an interesting world. We have a very interesting life. We do very, very interesting things. But I hate to see us being crabs in a barrel. I would love to see us being, like turtles that can stack themselves up to be able to get out the barrel. Something nice, right? Anyway, those are dreams. Dreams that can become reality. We just got to make them become reality. And you got to remember that for every time we kind of move forward, they tear it down in some kind of way. It's a crazy world. But the most interesting thing is that we have one of the greatest levelers for redistribution of everything in this pandemic. We really do. Wonder if we can take advantage of that. On that note, I'm going to say to you, I think we've covered everything that we need to cover for today. Make sure that you join us on this video podcast by subscribing to the podcast. Join us on our other podcast platforms by following us. And look, this is one of those situations where this conversation is not done. We're going to continue this conversation. So I look forward to talking to you again in the future. And I just can't wait. I'll see you again this Friday. I'll see you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until we feel like we don't need this anymore. Okay? On that note, peace, 10-4, over and out. See you next time.